In this video, we're going to check out some amazing Amon Hen scenery that's a great display piece and even better for wargaming. Welcome to Zorpazorp Gaming. My name is Lachie and it's an auspicious day here in the Zorpazorp studio as we unveil the next two scenery kits in our 28mm wargaming range. Let me introduce you to the Hilltop Ruins. I've got two little kits here for you today that are absolutely perfect at depicting the location of Amon Hen in the Lord of the Rings. Now our first big kit is of course focusing on our centerpiece. It comes with our lovely big central hilltop ruin as well as some beautiful statuettes, griffins, eagles and a couple of lovely ruins to dot your Pathgalen hillside as well. And then these ruins are also available separately just in case you want to expand the ruined stonework to give your hillside a little bit of extra detail. Now all of them are hand carved resin that has been resin cast, so you can absolutely get loads and loads of detail in these sculpts. They're really stunning to paint up and they're both available over at Zorpazorp.com. You can get them either unpainted or fully painted if you just want to grab them and throw them down on the tabletop and roll some dice. But what I'm going to do today is show you guys how to get them ready for your tabletop. We're going to paint them, I'm going to show you all of the tricks to getting some gorgeous stonework colors as well as doing a really lovely basing and detailing scheme to get that lovely stonework looking absolutely awesome and really bring the scene of Amon Hen to life. So first up, we'll give all of the resin components a quick wash in warm soapy water. This removes any remaining demolding agent and will make sure the paint adheres really nicely to the resin. Now before we can get into painting, there's a couple of components to assemble, and there's a whole bunch of different glues you can use for resin components. Often cyanoacrylate or super glues can work quite well, but for a project of this scale, I really like to use a high bond, high strength PVA because it's really resistant to shear stress and will make sure that the components lock in really nicely. For our ruin pieces, which just come in two easy components, I'm just going to glue those together, but for all of our statues and our main centerpiece ruin, I'm going to give those some physical bonding as well by pinning them with a bit of brass rod. So you can see me there just using my pin vise to drill down about 5mm in either direction in both components and putting a nice long sort of 10-8mm length of brass rod in, and that physical bonding will really help the glue and the physical bonding hold it all together. Now that everything's assembled, I'm going to give all of our components a nice prime in a dark grey using an aerosol primer from Rustoleum. It's really important that we use a nice aerosol primer because they've got a little bit more glue and adhesion in them, which gives us a really strong base to work from and will prevent any chipping later on. Our scheme today for the stonework is going to be pretty simple. We're going to use a series of graduated greys working up from our dark grey prime base and then do a little bit of a top highlight with some white and then come back in, give everything a nice wash to really put that grime and dirt and brown in, and then we'll give everything a final highlight to bring it to life. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my dark grey, take most of the paint off the brush and do quite a heavy dry brush or an overbrush over the bulk of the stonework. This first grey that we're putting down is essentially the main colour of the stonework. We just want to leave the prime deep in the recesses and use this grey to really give that stone its main bulk of colour. Up next, we'll move on to our lighter shade of grey, which is quite close to a fortress grey in the old Citadel terms, and this is a really nice grey to start to build up those highlight profiles. So we're going to dry brush with a little less coverage, going a little bit lighter than our first coat, really focusing on picking out all of those raised details and leaving our original colour in the midtones and the recesses. Now it's really important that in between all of these different layers of dry brushing, you leave enough drying time, otherwise essentially you just start to wet blend all of the different layers together and you really lose that definition and contrast on your highlights as it all just turns into one flat color without any contrast. You'll notice that I also jump in with a smaller brush to make sure that we can reach in between all of the pillars and hit all of the little details, especially the footpath. There's a lot of beautiful detail in there and around the stairs, and we want to make sure that that gets some attention as well. Once that second coat of grey is dry, I'm going to come in with some pure white, and we're going to be really delicate with this, take a lot of the paint on the brush and just really accent a lot of those top highlights and give a really nice contrast ratio to the main body of the stonework. So our first layers of dry brushing are done. Now it's time to really age up this stone and put in a lot of that grime and dirt with some washing. So what I've got here is just a high flow acrylic paint. Essentially it's a really high pigment, low viscosity paint that I can water down, and this will flow essentially like a Games Workshop wash, like an Agrax Earthshade, but on a really large broad scale with a nice earthy brown. So I'll just slather this over all of our ruined surfaces, the stonework, the statues, the arches, making sure we've got lots of coverage of that nice brown deep in the recesses to really tone and shade these aged ruins. You want to make sure that you leave a lot of time for that wash to really dry. I went and chucked all my ruins out in the sun and left them for about an hour so that we're working from a completely dry working surface, and we'll come back in with a little bit more of our top coat of light grey blended with some of our white and just do one final light dry brush, picking out some of those details and once again making sure we've got a nice crisp highlight to really optimize the contrast of our stonework. So the main colour of our stonework is now finished. Now it's time to get into a little bit of the details of our basing. We can pretty much put aside most of our other ruins for the time being, and I'm just going to grab a nice kind of dark brown, a bit of a burnt umber, and do a heavy dry brush over all of the base areas around our central ruin. Now that we've got the brown down in all of those earthy areas, we're going to start working on our basing and our grass work. So I'm going to grab some PVA and cover the exact same region with a nice thick coat. You can use any normal PVA that you've got. I'm using Weld Bond or a basing glue because it's nice and strong and it dries really quickly. And we're going to start to really layer up this grassy surface. Now the first thing I'm going to do is take some Luke's APS Arid Earth from the Base Ready range, which you can find over at Zorpazorp.com. These Base Readies are a fantastic pre-made blend of gravels and dirts and soils which just add a little bit of earthy life into the texture of the ground. Up next, I'm going to grab some coarse flock of a couple of different colours and sizes and start to create a few little shrubs and bushes growing up around the stonework. Even though we've only got a small little basing area to work with, we can really hint at how overgrown and how downtrodden this ruin really is. Now that we've got a bit of life and texture in our ground surface, we're going to come in and do the main pass of our grass layer. I'm going to be using a blend of 2mm and 4mm summer static grass just to give it a nice greeny neutral tone that blends really well with any kind of gaming surface. So while we've got our nice layer of exposed PVA, I just chuck a whole bunch of this blend into my static grass applicator, clip my clip onto the ruin so that we've got that current flow in our field, and then all of our grass will stand up nice and tall and give a good shake all around the base, moving the alligator clip as required to make sure that our fibers get a nice charge applied. Now the final step for our ground detail is to grab some Luke's APS Summer Tufts in the 10mm length and just tear them up into a few small clumps and dot them all around the stonework. This is the last really kind of overgrown element that we can get right up against the stone, coming up through the pavers amongst the stairs, and really bring the grass and the nature right into the stony landscape. Now that we've got our main ground surface down, the piece is really coming to life, but there's one little detail we're going to add before we call her finished. I'm just going to grab a little bit more PVA and paint a few little lines and creepers and vines going up the sides of our rockwork, and then grab some of the Luke's APS 2-in-1 foam flock and really jam that on the side into the glue and start to create some really nice overgrown trees and plants coming up the sides of our stonework. I'm also going to do this to our main statues and also our ruins, just to really tie all the pieces together and really hint at just how overgrown this ruined landscape is. So with that final layer of detail down, our beautiful little Amon Hen diorama is finished. Now of course these modular components don't just have to be Amon Hen, they can be suited to a whole bunch of locations, maybe even Osgiliath. So there we have it, guys, a beautiful Amon Hen diorama. I'm so excited to get my fellowship down on the table and start murdering some Uruk-hai. Maybe Boromir will even survive with me at the helm. We'll have to wait and see. That'll definitely be a future video. Make sure you guys head over to Zorpazorp.com and check out the online store to see the resin kit that we used to put this diorama together. It's really richly detailed, absolutely stunning, and you can get it either unpainted or fully painted if you just want to throw it down on the table and roll some dice and get gaming. So make sure you you check out that over at Zorpazorp.com. And we've got a whole bunch of Luke's APS terrain supplies as well. So there are lots of scenery goodies on the online store. And obviously, anything you guys purchase really helps the channel out and helps us make a whole lot more epic content for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you let us know down in the comments section, like the video, and subscribe if you're new around here. It's really awesome to see the little community we've got going and seeing people posting pictures of stuff they're making on our Facebook group. So it's really exciting to see this come together. I hope you guys are enjoying what we're doing. We're certainly enjoying bringing it to you. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time here on Zorpazorp Gaming. Cheers, guys.